Thank you, Parag. Thank you, ma'am. Very good afternoon, friends, and welcome to the fifth day of our research methodology workshop. So far, you have succeeded in developing your proposals. Some of you have even submitted your research designs. And the next step is that of analyzing the data that you will collect with whatever tool you use. So today we are going to experience two experts who will orient us in how to analyze the data quantitatively as well as qualitatively. So I would like to introduce our first expert who would orient us in analyzing the data quantitatively, and that is none the other than Dr. Megha Uplane ma'am. She's professor in the Department of Education and Extension in Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She has two doctoral degrees, one in physics and the other in education. So double doctor she is here to orient us. And she has not only got her own doctoral degrees, but she has also awarded number of PhDs, MAds, MPhils in the department. She's a Master of Physics naturally, and she has passed her SET examination and has a diploma in computer science. Her areas of research are science and mathematics education, measurement and evaluation, environment education, educational psychology, and inclusive education. She has teaching experience of 21 years at postgraduate level, 5 years at junior college level, and also 1 year she has taught in Navodaya Vidyalaya. She has major and minor projects at her credit, where she has been somewhere co-investigator and somewhere principal investigator. Then she has membership of Board of Studies in several universities like Aurangabad, Nanded, Mumbai, and of course Pune. She has also been awarded with the Best Teacher Award by Maharashtra State Secondary Teacher Educators Association, that is called MESTA, in the year 2017. She has visited Australia for Inclusive Education Project and Project Fellowship, and also USA to present her research paper. So ma'am, I welcome you on behalf of Bahai Academy and Pune University. A very warm welcome to you, and let us have your great inputs in quantitative analysis. Welcome ma'am. I hand over the session to you. Thank you very much. Welcome once again, one and all.
Thank you very much, respected Gaikwad madam, for very nice words used in my introduction. Friends, this is fifth day of our very planned workshop. Now, all of us have been already oriented by stalwarts in the field of education regarding various aspects of research in social sciences. Today is a day which is devoted for data analysis. And this session is again subdivided, as Gaikwad madam said, into two parts: data analysis for quantitative data, and one half portion is devoted to qualitative data analysis. So obviously, second part will be done by my colleague in the department, Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav, and I will be dealing with quantitative data analysis in social sciences, where human beings are very much involved in the process of data collection also. So data is collected from human beings in most of the researches in education or very much in social sciences. So Gaikwad madam, kindly allow me to share my screen.
Ma'am, you can share your screen. No problem.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am. We can see your screen, but the presentation is not yet open.
Now it is open.
Uh,
Is that
no,
so?
no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, okay, okay. I will close and again open.
Yes. Yes,
Is
we
it
can.
visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am. We can see your screen.
Okay, shall I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Friends, as we all know that this is a block diagram of research cycle, and now we are here today here for in the box or block of data analysis, which is very much in between data collection and findings of research. So this is a very crucial stage in the whole cycle, whole process of research, which is again further divided into so many parts. First one is data preparation, then describing our data, that is a part of um, descriptive statistics, then interpretation, drawing inferences, which is related to inferential statistics, and next part is interpretation of data, and fifth maybe presentation of data or visualization of data. Of course, that is that will be in terms of graphs and tables and very much after a whole process of data analysis. Now, if we consider data preparation as very first step of data analysis, after data collection, we can find that some of the data are not useful for analysis purpose or drawing conclusions, or it may be irrelevant, it may be duplicate records forms, or it may be with some mistakes also. So before we start our actual data analysis, we need to clean the data, and this includes the steps of compilation, editing of data, coding of data, classification of data, and tabulation of data. After that, we have to describe our data, and we are required to do all these things in a very critical manner, because as you all are observing here, that we have to travel from data to knowledge. And as already described by a previous session, during previous sessions, that research is meant for knowledge creation, and we have to travel from collected data, that is crude data. In Marathi it is mahiti, prakriya purva mahiti. So from data to knowledge we have to travel, and in between we have to convert data into information, then facts, and facts, when these facts are used in successful completion of decision making process in the light of our research objectives, then it becomes knowledge. So this way we have to consider data cleaning is a very critical process, because the clean data is being processed, and so as to create knowledge for the field of education. Friends, as we all know that research is a study of variables. As Garrett described in 1971, the term variable refers to attributes or qualities which exhibit differences in magnitude and vary along some dimensions. So every researcher must be very clear regarding variables involved in his or her study. For something to be a variable, it must have at least two values or scores. Friends, this is very critical and crucial and required thing that we all should know these four types or kinds of variables. Variables can be identified as categorical or quantitative. Now, what categorical variable is? Categorical variable provides information about qualitative differences. Qualitative differences. So obviously, if we recall, the scale used for this kind of variable measurement will be, of course, nominal scale of measurement. Variables can be divided into, variable is quantitative when it describes performance in quantitative terms. It exists on continuum that ranges from low to high or less to more, as we see in ordinal, interval, or ratio scales. Variables can be divided into independent and dependent variables. As we all know that when we are performing experiments in the field of social sciences, the independent variable is manipulative variable, and dependent is the variable which is affected by the treatment given as independent variable. Variables can be divided into continuous and discrete variables. There are many variables which are discrete variables and involved in social science researches. For example, we can say number of books in the library. If you are studying physical facilities in the schools in Pune city, Pune Municipal Corporation area, then if number of books in a library is a component to be measured, then books will be 10,001 or 10,002. There is no in-between possibility. So this kind of discrete variables are also there, and continuous variables are also there. For example, academic achievement scores or personality measurement scores. These are continuous scores, continuous variables. Variables can be represented by different kinds of scales of measurement. We all know that there are four different scales of measurement, and those are nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and ratio scale. Now, if we look at nominal scale, the examples we can have individuals' blood groups, or number of students in different divisions of same class, or gender, caste, nationality, house numbers, pin code numbers. These are various examples of nominal scale. Now, if we consider ordinal scale, as name indicates, there is a order. For example, poor, middle, rich, or classification of students' performance based in their examination scores, that first class, pass class, second class, first class, distinction class, and all those. If we consider weight of individuals, high or light or heavy, we can say. If we can say classification of objects on the basis of their touch, that soft, hard. So these are examples of ordinal scale. If we look at interval scale, we can have example like temperature measurement in centigrade or Fahrenheit scale, then mental variables or traits we can consider, social variables or social traits we can consider, then academic achievement scores we can consider. For interval scale, there is a order and there are equal in length of intervals. The only thing is there is no true zero, which is in ratio scale, but in social science we hardly use ratio scale, so we will focus on these three scales for further discussion. Now, if we are researchers in social science, this can be considered as a checkpoint, that the variables involved in our research, if two or more quantitative variables are there, it will be a correlational study. For example, if I am studying relation between emotional maturity, socio-economic status, and academic achievement of PG students of Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Now, if we look at all the three variables involved in our research, all three variables are quantitative variables. The description will be, output of description will be in terms of numbers, scores. So it will be correlational research. If one variable is categorical and one variable is quantitative, then it will be experimental or causal comparative research. For example, if I am studying as a researcher development of computer assisted instruction package for teaching geometry and its effectiveness, being a researcher, I am required to identify the variables involved in this research title. That one variable is a CAI package, which is a method of instruction. So this is categorical variable. There are number of methods of instruction and this is one of them. So this will be categorical variable, and another variable involved is not directly written in the statement or title of the research, but it is academic achievement in the subject geometry. So one categorical and one quantitative variable is there. So it will be experimental research. If two or more categorical variables, then it may be correlational or it may be descriptive research. For example, social and educational contribution of Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj. So both the variables are categorical variables. So it will be descriptive research. So this can be used as a key point or checkpoint for decision making while going before data analysis. Now, as we have seen that data analysis includes describing data and drawing inferences from the given data. This is very important definition given by D. Amato regarding descriptive statistics. He states that The aim of descriptive statistics is to describe meaningful properties of the sample data in terms of mathematical indices like mean and frequency distribution, measures of central tendencies, measures of variability, measures of relative position and relationships. So friends, we have to keep in mind that when we are analyzing our data, we are required to present our data, describe our data before going for inferential analysis. So obviously, after introduction, there will be description of data. And for inferential statistics, it deals with matter beyond sample data and infer characteristics of population from which the sample is drawn. Friends, we all know as researchers that we draw our sample from population because studying whole population is always very difficult, and we infer from the data, then we conclude, we predict something, and again we apply the predictions drawn from sample to the population. And if we know this principle, this is very important that we should analyze our data very critically. So what includes descriptive statistics? Compute mean. Friends, we all know that there are 3 measures of central tendency. And when we are dealing with our data, we are describing our data, we need to describe our data in terms of a measure of central tendency. And out of the 3, that is mean, median, and mode, mean is used when we are required to get reliable and accurate measure of central tendency. To compute further statistics, measure of central tendency of a series having no extreme items. So this is also very important.
Statistics particular Uplane
when to compute median.
She's just
if we are required to get an exact midpoint of distribution, this we have to keep in mind when we are connecting measure of central tendency with measure of variability also, because while describing our distribution, our data, we are required to give a measure of central tendency as well as measure of variability. If we have a series containing extreme scores, if we have a distribution with the open end, and if we have appropriate graphical representation of data, it is again very easy to speak about median of the distribution or data. When to use mode? If we have to get a quick and approximate measure of central tendency, if we have to know the most often recurring score or value of the item in a series, if we have appropriate graphical presentation of data. So friends, when we are dealing with description of data, we are required to give appropriate measure of central tendency, and along with appropriate measure of central tendency, we are supposed to describe our data in terms of appropriate measure of variability. There are 4 measures: range, quartile deviation, average deviation, and standard deviation. Range is useful in case of small group with less variation. Quartile deviation is suggested or it is useful in case of fluctuations in upper and lower quartile. As in previous slide, we have seen that when the distribution is open. So that case, in that situation also, there we have to consider median as measure of central tendency and quartile deviation as a measure of variability. Average deviation is useful in case where all observations are to be considered, and standard deviation is useful in case where all observations are to be considered and when it will be used in further mathematical treatment. So these are the measures of variability, and we have to consider the appropriate measure. This is a table which shows the relative order of measures of variability for application, and if you see carefully, if the situation is the need of highly reliable variability measure, highly reliable is standard deviation. Mean as a measure of central tendency, obviously standard deviation is here. And the last row, I would like to speak about it more, that the need to compute further statistics from the measure of dispersion. So if we are going for drawing inferences from the data, then using statistical treatment, then we have to have standard deviation as measure of variability and mean as measure of central tendency for our data description. While describing data, sometimes we are required to use relative positions. A measure of location or position for collection of data values is number that is meant to convey the idea of the relative position of data value in the data set. And the most commonly used measures for location are Z and T test, then percentiles, deciles, quartiles. Out of these, Z and T scores are we are using when we are using standardized tests. We are very familiar with percentiles in our CET examinations. So these are for relative positions. And also we are required to know the frequencies and proportions when we are dealing with nominal scale data. Friends, now we will move towards inferential statistics. Non-parametric test or distribution-free tests are used when we are dealing with nominal and ordinal scale data. So when the method can be used with nominal data and also with ordinal data, non-parametric tests are used. There are a number of non-parametric tests, and they are very useful when because they are used in with all scales, means nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio scale data. Easier to compute, make fewer assumptions, need to involve population parameters, need not to involve population parameters because since they are distribution free, results may be as exact as parametric procedures. The only limitation is when we are dealing with generalization. There are disadvantages or limitations, we can say, when we are using non-parametric tests. They may waste information when parametric model more efficient if data permits, difficult to compute by hand for large samples, and the tables which are used for standard values are not widely available. So these are the limitations or disadvantages of non-parametric tests. When we are dealing with univariate studies, means only one variable is involved in our research, and that can be measured on nominal basis for frequency, proportion, and mode can be used. And for statistical analysis, chi-square test for goodness of fit can be used. When we are dealing with a single variable measured on ordinal scale, then for description of data, frequency and median are appropriate, and for inferential data, signed rank test is useful or suggested. When we are dealing with bivariate analysis, it means research involves two variables and both are measured on nominal scale. Then for description of data, frequency, proportion, and mode are suggested. And for inferential statistics, chi-square test and McNemar's related test are suggested for inferential calculations. Again, if we are dealing with bivariate analysis, two variables are involved and both are measured on ordinal scale of data. Then for description of data, frequency and median are suggested, and for statistical analysis, Mann-Whitney U-test, independent type, Wilcoxon's test, dependent type, and Friedman test for more than 3 samples are suggested for inferential statistics. Friends, when we are dealing with non-parametric choices, we are required to consider data type also in terms of whether the data is continuous or discrete kind of data. If data is discrete, there is no other alternative than chi-square. But if data is continuous, the selection of test depends on the questions, research question. If the research question is related to association between variables, then Spearman's rank difference test can be used. If the research question is related to different central values, then we have to consider number of groups also. If there are 2 groups, Mann-Whitney U-test or Wilcoxon's rank test can be used. And if there are more than 2 groups, then Kruskal-Wallis test can be used, as we use ANOVA in parametric analysis. So after this, when to use parametric test? Parametric test. So for parametric tests, we need to follow rules. 4 different conditions we have to satisfy. First one is normality. The population from which the samples have been drawn should be normally distributed, or we can test our sample data for its normality. The variables involved must have been measured in interval or ratio scale. And as already told, in social science research, and especially when we are dealing with education, we work in interval scale. Hardly we involve variables which are measured on a ratio scale. The observations must be independent. The inclusion or exclusion of any case in the sample should not unduly affect the results of the study. We all know this principle because we have used and studied it in our random sampling. The populations must have the same variance. This we call homoscedasticity. Homoscedasticity means, homo means same and scedasticity means scattering. So the scattering should not be too much is a condition. And this is measured in terms of variance. It is the arithmetic average of squared deviation from their means. In other words, it is the square of the standard deviation, as we all have studied. Importance of computing homoscedasticity. It is underlying assumption for regression. Because if we are dealing with, we are planning to propose regression equations in our correlation researches, we are supposed to conduct this homoscedasticity assumption analysis. Its violation leads to parameter estimates with inflated variances. As already discussed, we draw sample from population and we apply the outcomes drawn from the sample to the population. So this is very important aspect. If the data are homoscedastic, then the usual regression estimates can be used. Homoscedasticity is a formal requirement for some statistical analysis, including ANOVA, which is used to compare means of two or more groups. So, friends, for the first thing, we need to test normality of our data. There are many ways and means using SPSS and other things also we can compute normality. But the easiest way to compute normality is normal curve measured for its skewness is 0 and kurtosis is 0.263. So these are the measures, and we are required to always keep in mind that we will not ever get a perfectly normal distribution in our social science researches. So there is a range of these values where we can say the distribution is nearly normal and we can apply parametric tests. So if data is on interval or ratio scale and it is normally distributed and it is homoscedastic, then the tests available for parametric analysis are: if we have two independent samples, samples are large and the test which is used as named as Z test can be used. If samples are small, that is where n is less than 30, T test can be used or F test can be used depending upon number of means. Two related samples, population normal and sample is small, then paired t-test can be used. Friends, we all have, many of us all have already studied how to compute t-test and how to compare calculated t with table t value, and then we declare that the null hypothesis is not, null hypothesis is rejected and alternative research hypothesis is accepted. But when we are dealing researches for higher degrees, the only statistical significance is the least interesting thing about the results. As Glass says, you should describe the results in terms of measures of magnitude, not just does a treatment affect people, but how much does it affect them. That calculations or that computations are also expected after t-test calculations. As Cohen says, the primary product of a research inquiry is one or more measures of effect size, not just p-values. Here, a p-value is a term which is used for null hypothesis rejection using SPSS testing. When we are doing it by hand, it will be a table t value. So only comparing calculated t with table t value is should not be our aim of data analysis when we are dealing with parametric testing for difference between mean scores of two groups, either independent or correlated. So how to calculate and what to calculate is also, very important. So this is to be considered when we are dealing with t-test, how to compute effect size. Effect size is a statistical term. It gives estimate about magnitude of the difference between groups or a relationship between variables. Why effect size? Effect size is a main finding in quantitative research and is independent of sample size. Friends, you can recall that sample size affects significance tests, but effect size is not affected even by sample size. So this we have to plan when you are we are planning our research. So if we would like to compute effect size of the treatment given or as an effect of manipulative variable, then we should have a control group, because the formula of effect size includes the formula is like that, like mean of treatment group minus mean of control group divided by standard deviation of control group. If we don't have control group as such, then we will not be able to compute effect size. So this has to be considered in the planning of our research. So this is all about effect size when we are computing difference between two mean scores of two different independent or correlated groups. If we have 3 or more independent samples, then and data is on nominal scale, chi-square test can be used. And when we are dealing with parametric tests, two-way ANOVA with F-test is suggested. When we are dealing with correlation researches, as already told one example, that all the 3 variables involved are quantitative. and measured on interval scale, then correlation research, calculations related to correlation research are to be conducted or completed. So we all know that there is positive, negative, or zero correlation is there. And if in correlation research, if we get a strong relationship means the coefficient of correlation is very close to positive or negative. If positive, very close to +1, it will be strong positive correlationship. And if it is close to negative -1, then it will be a strong negative correlationship. One variable is increased, other will be decreased. So if we get this kind of strong relationships, then we are required to calculate or compute regression equations. Before saying about assumptions of regressions, meaning of regression assumption is, regressions clarify the conditions under which multiple regression works well, ideally with unbiased and efficient estimate. When we calculate a regression equation, we are attempting to use the independent variable to predict that the dependent variable will be. So if I get strong correlation between emotional maturity and academic achievement, then regression equation which can imply that if one could give the emotional maturity score, the equation will be able to tell about approximate academic achievement scores. So this kind of relations can be proposed using regression analysis. In the process of calculating the regression equation, we assume that the certain conditions exist with regard to the data we are assuming. Of course, we have to quote always the research conditions which we have already declared in our delimitations of researches. Before going to regression analysis, or we propose regression equations, we should check our data for these 4 assumptions of linear regression. And the assumptions are linearity of relationship between dependent and independent variable, independence, that is no serial correlation is there, homoscedasticity, that is constant variance as we have already studied, and normality of data. So if we have all the 4 assumptions for regression equations, then we can propose regression equations by the end of correlation research. Sometimes, even if data is measured on interval scale and it doesn't follow the distribution rules, it shows non-normality characteristics, then what to do? If the data are on internal or ratio scale and variances of the 2 samples do not meet an equality of variance, then what to do? Then apply non-parametric tests even if data are measured on interval or ratio scale. Friends, it means that we are required to ask questions before selection of test for our data analysis. Which are the questions to be asked? First one is, what type of response variable do we have? Whether it is continuous or categorical variable. Very important question. If you get answer of these questions, then go for next question. How many groups are being studied or compared? Very important. And before number of groups, in the response variable description, the scale of measurement as well as whether it is discrete or continuous. Then the third question, what is the research question? Whether it is related to no difference, null hypothesis, or for association, or for correlation. So these are the questions to be asked. Then there is a key for research question identification. Is it this? If the question includes, is it this? And another possibility is, what is it? So this is a key for research question identification. And then check your data for the assumptions so as to decide which test is more appropriate and which can be safely used for the particular set of data. The data are normally distributed. If answer is yes, go for parametric tests. Can we assume the variances of two populations are equal? Are the groups dependent or independent? If you get the answers of all these questions, and using this information and even using statistics books and other things, if you could prepare the decision tree, inverted tree, then it will be very easy for making decisions regarding data analysis. Rather, this will be my assignment for this particular session, that please prepare decision tree for data analysis in social science. Friends, as already told, that we start with sample characteristics, and then we assume population. Many times we are not able to get exact population size. Then we assume a population size, and using different sampling techniques, we select our sample and we work with that sample, we collect data, we experiment, and whatever we get from the sample data, we try to generalize or project back the findings or results from sample subject back to the population. If this is the way, this is the way in which research is seen, then I think it is very important that we are required to take care of data analysis phase. So in summary, I would like to say, for non-parametric tests are used for analyzing nominal and ordinal variables, and they makes no assumptions about data. Parametric tests are used for analyzing interval and ratio variables, and they makes assumptions about data. And the important things which we are required to consider while using parametric tests are normal distribution, homogeneity of variance, and independent observations. If we could manage these things, we will be able to analyze our data in a very successful way and even manually on our own. All the best for your data analysis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Uplane. It was very, very informative and orienting inputs that you have given to the participants and to all colleagues, we all colleagues, and hope we will be able to do. You're welcome, ma'am. Welcome once again. So now we have the second part of today's presentations, and in this part, we have Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav. Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav is currently working as a professor, assistant professor in Department of Education and Extension, and he is a coordinator in School of Open Learning and School of Education and coordinator for National Resource Center in Savitribai Phule University. He started his career in MP actually in 2004, and then he landed to Yashwantrao Chavan Maharashtra Open University in 2005, where we were together for 5 years. And then he shifted to Pune University, where he is still working with the Department of Education. He has his graduation and post-graduation degrees in English literature and education and PhD from Regional Institute of Education, that is NCRT Bhopal. He is awarded with the prestigious award C.V. Raman Postdoctoral Fellowship by UGC New Delhi, and he completed postdoctoral research in University of Massachusetts in USA in 2017. He has completed research projects on governance and leadership in higher education of India, UNESCO Bangkok project on telecollaboration in teacher education, and UPA Phase 2 project on e-governance in universities of Maharashtra, and ongoing international project on teacher education with Southeastern Norway University, University of Deusto, Spain. And also e-governance and management in Indian Universities project funded by IUCTE MSU Baroda, that is and cloud-based micro learning project funded by ASPIRE Pune University. He is working with UNESCO Bangkok, Thailand, and Seoul in South Korea. He was rewarded, his paper was the best research paper in 2009, which was awarded by MESTA, and he has received the Young Teacher Educator, that is Prerana Award, which is given by MESTA to the young teacher educators. He has around 20 research publications at national international level, and he has given 2 PhD scholars who have received PhD under his guidance. So Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav has been actively involved in the research in teacher education and pre and in-service teacher education programs of teachers. So Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav, I welcome you on behalf of the university and the Bahai Academy. You're most welcome to this nice research methodology workshop that is orienting our participants. And I hand over the session to you,
Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav, sir.
Okay, I can
Sure, you
share.
can.
No problem. Thank you. It is very great pleasure to me that Bahai Academy thought that I can speak in front of all the learner professors and new learners. So it is, I think, for me, it is very difficult to speak after the such great big shots in education like Professor Sonane, Professor Uplane, Professor Shepali Pandya, and all the big shots completed their task. So it is big responsibility on my shoulder that I can do something, something at least whatever they present, at least I can reach near to them. So, and my topic is basically today I would like to discuss. I'm not saying that I'm teaching to you anything else right now. So I would like to discuss about the qualitative research. So this is also another big challenge in front of me, because recently I am working with the Department of Education, and in our department we have a very good research environment, and we are always thinking about different kind of approaches which are newly introduced in the field of educational research. Now, yeah. So I hope my decks will be shared in front of all the learners. Okay.
Yes, we can see your screen, sir.
Okay. So qualitative research, it is when we are thinking about the qualitative research, it is not just like something is different and we never happen with our research such kind of new genre. But no, it is a very frequently we maybe use it in our researches, but maybe we don't know follow the all kind of the technicality or rules and the guidelines which is majorly focusing on the quality research. Before going to discuss this entire concept, I would like to focus on the some background of the qualitative research, that why qualitative research is so important. All research are always important for the making policy and defining the new environment. So before going to discuss this thing, I would like to focus on all of you on two things. Basically, the philosophical base. Whenever any concept revolve in any field, that time there is some kind of philosophy behind it. When the concept is revolving, when the concept is making conceptualization in the actual practices, that time we need to see that what is the base of this all kind of phase. When I read the book regarding the qualitative research published by the Rosaman and Rallis, then I came to know that yes, we should be know very well about the philosophy. Philosophy, all of you know that people are thinking, always thinking when I started with the philosophical way, it's any concept from the education. I thought that we have to think philosophically first, then we have to reach the main concept. For example, when we are seeing the idealism and realism, this is a very big there is a big discussion between the idealism and realism in philosophy, in basically in the educational philosophy also. That's why Mahatma Gandhi is always trying to interconnected with all the philosophy, all the Westerns and Indian philosophy, and he trying to develop the basic education. In the same way, we see when the qualitative research, when the researcher are doing the research, he should be know the basic philosophy of our his own approach or her own approach when they are doing the research. In my perspective, when I'm thinking idealismally and realismally, that time I thought that the Platonic view. So father of the idealism is the Plato. Plato is always thinking that when the person is thinking, he has think first the ideas. He has encounter with their own ideas. Then he came to know the objects, and then he trying to identify the object. For example, suppose the concept of the table. The concept of a table occurs in my mind, and when I saw the wood, then I came to know that okay, we can refine, we can make such kind of table with the help of this wood. So the same way in the Aristotelian view, if we see, he clearly mentioned, he is the disciple of the Plato, and he clearly mentioned that no, we haven't such kind of the idea. We have a believe on a object. When I saw the wood, then I have some kind of ideas about the table and chair. So this is the very initially from the each and every ancient literature of each country, you can find it. This is the big war between the idealism and realism. When a researcher, as a teacher, when become a researcher, he should be know about all kind of the philosophy of his own research. That's why I very appreciate the lines which is drafted by the Rosamond in her book, that she clearly mentioned that when a researcher combine their own direct experience. So see, direct experience, such kind of the objects, direct experience with their existing understanding through the complex reasoning, and to make the sense of world, they can explore, they can something, they can find it. So as a researcher, he or she should be start his own research. I'm saying any kind of the research, but basically in the qualitative research, he should be believe on both angles. There are a number of different kind of the isms are included in a research, but this this is the empirical ism, and basic two isms are clearly mentioned, that your eye should be open with Aristotelian view and Platonic view. That's why we can be measure something, we can be draw out something, we can be find it something concrete or something, we can say you can generate something in the qualitative research. In the same way, when we are thinking about the philosophically, that's again I encounter with 2-3 concepts. For example, the epistemology, ontology, and axiology. Maybe in Marathi books, we maybe read it that Mulya Mimansa, Karan Mimansa, Jnana Mimansa. So when researcher starting his own work in the field of the qualitative research, number of researchers, number of reviews are clearly mentioned that he or she should be learner, because this is the entire learning process. And when we are trying to find out the knowledge with the help of the information, that's why the basic question arises in the epistemology, that what is the knowledge? And nowadays we have a lot of information with us, because we have internet with us, and we have a Professor Google, which is very popular in the field of education, in the field of everywhere. Because this kind of browsers, I'm not criticizing anything else here, but we are getting a lot of information. I think previously when I need to find out some kind of definition, suppose my professor assigned to me some work that you have to work on particular issue, that we need to go into library and we are finding to books. But nowadays Professor Google, or we can say the Google, is always providing a lot of information to you. That's why I'm saying it is just kind of the information, and such information converts into the knowledge. It is just kind of the process of research, and this process is really very interesting process, that how you can transfer the information into the knowledge. That's why epistemology clearly mentioned that when the researcher start his own work, basically in qualitative, I would like to say that here, when you qualitative research, you have to, because in the qualitative research you cannot make a segment or phases. It is a continuous process of all the steps. I'm coming to the things. So finding the truth, finding the exact meaning of particular information with the help of qualitative research, we are getting perfect work with this new paradigm. When this is a qualitative research, when we are thinking about the qualitative research, it is a just and collective. So that's why there is very interesting word is that thick and thin description. In this paradigm, it is not new paradigm. It is very introduced in 90s. In my lecture regarding the analysis of qualitative data with the help of technology, it is also I mentioned that when the quantitative research come out, when researcher work on a quantitative phenomenon, a quantitative research, that time technology comes laterally. But in the case of qualitative research, both things emerge at the same way. That's why it is very interesting thing that when the qualitative research, this paradigm is coming out, that time technology, at the same time technology also coming out with the qualitative paradigm. So in this paradigm, generally the persons actively construct their own meanings of the situation. When the researcher is came across the situation, he is trying to find out the new meaning, because he is a direct person in a qualitative research who are observing all the things. That's why it is a very challenging and interesting things. And second, that the entire meaning arise from all the situation which is around you, the social situation, the social sciences basically. Behavior and data are socially situated and context related. In this paradigm, if you see the data is in very scattered way, and it's connected with the social aspect and contextual with the contextual. And you can find it number of different kind of multiple realities from the data. That time it is a very we can say it is a very challenging, or I can say that it is very interesting to identify the multiple realities from the data. And qualitative research is trying to give you such kind of the exposure to find out the different kind of the aspect of single data. Already I mentioned that this is a thick and thin description, because in this qualitative paradigm, you have to, when we collected data in a big, not number, in a big manner, in the form of the text, in the form of the words, or in the form of the images, that time you are trying to think also on the particular data. And researchers are intentionally, they are create the actions, they are create the beliefs, they are create their own meaning with the help of own data. There is some limitation, but I will explain the limitation later on. And the eyes of participants or eyes of observer are very important in this paradigm. When this paradigm is coming out, when the paradigm is thinking out, okay, solely we can do the research with qualitative research, okay, we can do it. Solely we can make it. That's why understanding and giving the meaningful, we can say giving meaningful action to the particular information, it is very important in a qualitative research. They never asking about to proof in a qualitative research, because in the qualitative research, the ethics are very clearly that when we are playing the games with the data, which data is basically in the form of scattered way, that time you have to identify different kind of the meanings, different kind of the aspects and angles of the data. That is very important in this paradigm. The process of this research and where are they important as outcome. Okay, this is another important thing is that the entire outcome of this research, it is one process. So when the researcher is working with the qualitative research, the entire process is one of the outcome of the researcher, because the result came out, whatever the result are the different thing. When we can get the result from a particular case study, it is another thing, but the entire process is one of the outcome of this. This is a very beautiful characteristics of the qualitative research. Research should be conducted in natural and real world settings. Yeah, there is no need to modify any kind of the setting. There is no need to design particular prefigured, we can say. No need to make one compartment. I remember one example here when I think here Professor Gaikwad Madam is here, and I remember one lecture in YCMU. That time one professor explained about the research in scheduled tribe somewhere in the Nasik, near Nasik, Zawar Mokada, something, the tribal area near to Nasik. That time he mentioned very clearly that the researcher or the particular person who is conducting such qualitative research, who should be work with the entire natural and real world settings. If he lose a single day to collecting, for example, I am working on a tribal education in Nasik district, suppose. So I should spend some days, at least some months with the particular tribal families. So this is very important, the natural and real world. It is not just like to sending some kind of the questionnaire to the particular respondent or particular sample, and then we can collect the particular data from after 2 months or 3 months. No, it is not possible. So we cannot reach to your own real goal, which is designed in the qualitative research. You have to be there with the particular setting. For example, again, I'm giving a major example that the researcher should spend at least 1 month with the tribal family. And then he can or she can be observed, he can write the diaries, he can mention. And another important thing in the quality research, it is not just like in the phase wise, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. It is continuous. I'm saying it is a continuous. Why I'm saying again and again this is continuous process. If you read the book, I will show you the book. If you read the book, the writer, the author is Creswell. You know, maybe this is very familiar name in Indian research, educational research, Creswell and Rosamond. They mention in their book that you have to be the part of the particular population or sample. Then you can be able to say something about the truth. Epistemology, the characteristics of the epistemology is saying that when you want to find the truth, you have to play the games with the data. And that is the same thing happening in a qualitative research. That is why the role of researcher is very important in qualitative research. I am not saying that it is not important in other research, but it is really very serious, sincere role in a qualitative research. Social reality, experience and social phenomena. Everything is scattered. What I am saying again and again in this phenomena, everything is scattered in the society, in the particular, whenever you are going to collect the data, this is very scattered way. So if you see that, I'm not going into the depth of the data collection tool in a qualitative research, but if you see the data collection tools, for example, interview, you cannot predict all the answers of the particular interview. So this is entire, what I'm saying, this is a very huge, thick, we have a, that's why need to think very carefully of the thick data. And ultimately the qualitative research is always trying to find out something, find out the theory, they can evolve the theory. The research is trying to find out generate some kind of the theory from your research. Or we can say, if it is not possible to develop any kind of the theory, or we can say education sector in the field of educational research, it is very difficult to develop any kind of the theory with the help of qualitative research, but at least we can find out some kind of the patterns of the education, some kind of patterns of the evaluation, some kind of patterns of teaching learning process. So entire focus of the qualitative research is trying to find out the theory, or trying to find out some patterns, trying to find out something, new angles, societal views. It is very interesting, but it is very difficult to maintain. So I'm coming to the next point, that how we can find out the exactly meaning of the qualitative research is that it is a work as a natural world. You cannot, if you are going to modify your entire space of research, you will lose all the characters of the qualitative research. That's why I'm saying you should be work whatever the space of research, you should be work as it with it. Use the multiple methods, because recently I found there is some different name of the third chapter. We are always using that research method, and the chapter's name of the third is at research methodology. But when I across to the science dissertation of the science faculty, science and technology faculty, they are trying to using the word that plan and procedure of the research, plan and procedure of the entire study. So in a plan and procedure, you can use multiple methods, you can use multiple approaches. That's why nowadays, actually, I'm saying it is late, because the first uh, uh, I could not remember the first research, but I remember one book which is I found in my CMOU library in 2008. That time the first book published by the Criswell in Nebraska. That time it is we purchased this copy in my CMOU. That so such kind of the literature is really helpful to you, that you can try to find out new genre of in the field of qualitative research. And ultimately what I'm trying to say, that it is a emergent, it is a something emergent from your research, something is coming out from your research. Maybe it is, don't think so that it is very what I'm saying tightly prefigured out or something in the box, no need to go out of the box. No, there is lot, it is out of the box, we can say. You can find it something from out of the box. So qualitative research will be help you. If you have a divergent thinking, you can use it in a emerging, you can emerge something from your research. What is the role of such kind, when you are doing, really you are doing solely the qualitative research and you are known as qualitative researcher, you should be think every time as a holistically, systematically. You should be very sensitive, and you have to use the complex things. You have to use the ideas and object, what I am already mentioned in the philosophical ways. That at the same time you have to think about the ideas, at the same time you have to think about the images or objects. Then you can make very nice you can say something, you can find out something differently in your research. Already I mentioned that qualitative research are learning process, because the transformation of information into knowledge, it is an active learning process, and qualitative inquiry provides the detailed things about the learning process. That's why from this dais, I would like to say all the researchers are the learners, and they have made choice themselves, and they are shape their emerging process of the inquiry. Basically, two features I would like to identify from this literature, that researcher, it means the learner through which the study is conducted. Learner as a constructor of the knowledge rather than the receiver. He is not the researcher, he or she is not merely receive the data, but he or she is trying to develop something with the help of the data, something different, new. That's why I'm saying some researchers definitely find out the theory, but at least we can find out some patterns which is not at all found out by anybody else. This is a big challenge, or we have to accept with the help of the qualitative research. The purpose is to learn about some facet of social world. When I discuss this thing with the researcher of the management, you cannot believe that the people, those are working research in the field of the management, they, for example, they find out some styles of shirts, some styles of tops. It is not just merely the observation of the pictures and observation of photos. No, they spend lot of time on the square, they spend lot of time on the signal, they spend lot of time in the mall, they talk with the people, they collect the data from different kind of the sources, and then they will come to decide that, okay, this is one of the new fashion will be applicable for the new society. That's why it is really interesting. One of that we can some facet to the social world. Okay. When to understand, suppose I would like to understand the entire process of the qualitative research in the social educational research. I'm not focusing on this part because it is already mentioned maybe Professor Uplane madam, but quantitative characteristics are very familiar with. Definitely, I'm saying here qualitative characteristics are also familiar with all my researchers. I'm not saying that it is new or it is something very something new from the some another plant. No, it is also, but I would like to explaining with the help of the entire research process. I hope this is the very common research. I am not giving here details, but this is the entire common research process in educational research. For example, identifying the problem. Once we identify the problem, generally identifying problem, before the identifying problem, we need to do a lot of research review. Then we can able to say this is one of my area. But we can say, okay, after identifying the problem, we need to do a lot of research review from online or offline. Then with the help of reviewing the entire literature, we are trying to say something about the purpose of my research. Once I define my purpose, define my aim of my research, then I'll try to getting some data with the help of some my data collection tool. And then once I receive the data, then I'm trying to analyze and interpret the data and writing the report. So this is a very common process of the research process in educational research also. How the qualitative characteristics or the particular aspects working in each phase. I'm just trying to match the process and the characteristics of the qualitative research. It is just kind of the exploratory research. Every step when we are working on title, or we are working on problem, or when we are working about the area of the research, that time understanding and exploring all the entire facts. This is the once we find the central phenomena, and then we can work to move. The role of literature in the qualitative research, I am not saying it is very negligible, but very not major role, but we need to collect some reviews. But what I am trying to say that in this qualitative research, when I'm trying to get some reviews, that time my reflection is very important rather than the collecting the reviews. So justifying the problem with the help of own experience, own understanding about the reviews. So this is and the issue when the not issue but when the problems come out in the mind, that time sometime in the qualitative research it is a really novel problem. So we are trying to justify the problem with your own experience rather than the lot of reviews. When you are writing to purpose, again here I am focusing on the general and broad purpose of the research are mentioning in a qualitative research, and the researcher are trying to adding his own experience with the justifying his purpose. The very interesting part in a qualitative research is the collecting data and data collection tool. The data collection tool and the procedure of data collection. It is very interesting in a qualitative research. It is not like a quantitative research. Already I mentioned that to distributing questionnaire to the sample and after collecting. No, it is not like this thing. These two things, collecting data and analyzing the data, these two things should be go in hand in hand. It is not working as a phase 1 and phase 2. If you are as a qualitative researcher, if you are trying to do that, collect the data with the help of text or with the help of some images, and you thought that okay, later after the 1 month I will analyze all the text, all the images, all the recordings, then you will lose the entire objective of the qualitative research. Maybe I would like to say here, you have to lose the real sense of data collection. Because in the qualitative research, for here I would like to give again one example, the same example, that study of the tribal people or tribal education system or tribal people in particular area. When I write down all the notes or diary, for example, the tool of data collection is that observation. Suppose I collect the data with the help of observation schedules. Suppose we can collect the data from the photos. I am clicking some photos with the help of camera. I am recording some conversation among the people, those are living in tribal. So I need to uh, listen particular conversation within a day and transcript within particular day, in a particular day. It means, suppose, for example, I record some conversation with the tribal people at morning and collecting some notes with the help of some my diary. At the same day, I need to transcript entire data in particular form, particular with the help of themes and codes, and I need to at least find out some kind of the patterns at the same day. Then ultimately, then you can interpret the data later on, but at least analyze on the same day. So when you collect the data, so the entire three process is very important. That's why it is a learning. It is a continuous process. Collect data with the help of particular tools, technique, or devices, and you can manage the data at the same day. So that is why I'm saying that collecting data and analyzing the data is a very important phase in the qualitative research. Then ultimately phase is that you're writing a report, evaluating the entire your report. It is very flexible, emerging. Again, I focus on the two things that this focus is very important in the writing report. When you are writing the report, that time you have to mentioning the theory generation or some patterns which are really find out from your research. It is very flexible. It is, yeah, some reflexive, and sometimes it is a bias, because this is one kind of, I'm not saying it is a limitation, but researcher is continuously playing entire game with their data at alone and solely. That time sometime he can or she can be use his own or their own logic in the writings, but they have to use it. That is why this is the important. That's why they can discuss about the different kind of patterns or different kind of theories, at least in the last part of the report. This is the one simple introduction of the qualitative research, and just I would like to focus on the important 4-3 parts, and then we will take some questions. In there is see, what is the postmodernism, post-colonism? The entire postmodernism researcher, basically in the field of qualitative research, when the Western writers written the books on a qualitative research, or we can say when the qualitative research age is going on, that time we are here fighting with the independence, and the restoration period is going on there. So the entire procedure is very different. That's why some different genre identified by the Creswells and Rosamund. Both writers are the working after 1950s or 1960s. So their angle are basically on a postmodernism angles. So they basically focus on the 4 genre. Out of 4, first is that ethnographic. I think it is very popular to all the researchers. They are very aware about this thing. What is the purpose of the ethnography? I'm just focusing on each channel. 6, to understand the culture of the people in the ethnographic research, trying to identify, understand the culture of the particular settings, particular people. And ethnography originates in the discipline from the anthropology. And the concept of the culture is very central part and important part of the ethnographic study. The entire research is surrounding the culture. Culture it not means only culture. Culture is some kind, sometimes it is a settings, it is some kind of the settings. In such research, the researcher are generally using long-term research or sustained engagement. They are continuously engaged in particular, we can say particular uh, group of society, or they can using multiple methods. Already I mentioned that multiple methods and it should be flexible and multiple. For example, when they are working on such issue, they are identifying the research question instead of the hypothesis. So how do the actions one group affect the belief and action of other often marginalized group? So they are identifying what are the impact of particular one group to another group in a tribal area, because there are number of different. For example, again I am saying that what is the impact of education on tribal education, on tribal people in Maharashtra, or we can say in Nasik and in Amravati. So settings may be different, and these are the critical questions need to identify in a qualitative research. So already I mentioned that culture is not only culture as the meaning of culture in the dictionary. Culture, for example, one can study microculture. For example, in a classroom setting, this is one kind of the culture. As a researcher in the field of education, what is happening in the classroom settings? What kind of different angles in classroom settings? So always I am thinking about the methods, teaching method. But this is the micro teaching method, or this is the methods of using technology. But sometimes some researcher thought that what is kind of culture is going in a classroom. What is the culture of classroom in Nasik? What is the culture of classroom in Amravati? What is the culture of classroom in rural area, urban area, hilly area? So settings. So culture means culture of some people, culture of incidents, culture of settings, or some way. Some cultures are macro level, such as the entire culture of the USA. Because suppose entire culture of India, it is very difficult in India, because in India we have a different kind of the cultural settings, language settings, close settings. We have a very divergent and different things in India. So it is very interesting to conduct. That's why nowadays you cannot believe that European universities are trying to work on all cultural aspect of the education. They are trying to work on languages in India. They are trying to work on different cultures in India, and what is the connection between single education system with the different culture. So this kind of new areas are attracting to the new researcher, and they are doing this research with the help of qualitative research. Phenomenological research to seek to understand the life experience of small number of people. It's very collecting very small area or small settings. For example, very good school or classroom in a school like this way, or entire in a particular caste, particular group of society, how they can work, how they can learn like this way. And it is very phenomenological research in there is it very rigorous depth interviews are using, because in this research the method is that interviewing. So interview is one of the tool, but getting the data, collecting the data with the help of interview, it is very crucial part in this research. The entire work of this research depend on the entire collection of the data with the help of the interview. And you can imagine that suppose one of my students conducted one research on Nelson Mandela and APJ Abdul Kalam. Regarding this, suppose I interviewed with 10 people, and there is unstructured interview and some questions are there. You can imagine that how the big data I collected and how I can manage with the data. So gaining very small things with the huge data, Maybe sometimes it look like one single interview, but you cannot believe when you are working with the words of particular interviewer, then you can realize that how the big data is big, how the data is big, and how I work with the data. That's why uh, collecting data with the help of interview in this particular journal, it is very challenging work. So the role of the researcher to gain access individuals' life words, which is their world of experience. Suppose here I'm giving again one example about the APJ Abdul Kalam. The researcher should be, because when he or she is trying to understand the world of experience, what I'm saying here, this world of experience, that time they should be very clear about the all the aspect of particular person. Suppose APJ Abdul Kalam. So the researcher should be very clear about all the aspects. That's why before entering to collect the data with the help of interview in the field, I should be very keen and clear about my objects. And this is the very challenging in this phenomenological research. Newly added, I'm not adding here grounded theory, but I would like to focus on sociolinguistic research. That's why I mentioned about the importance of postmodernism style in qualitative research. In this research, it's looking, or they are trying to getting the meanings of words, gestures, and signs. Nowadays, in one of the international project, I am working on a rubric. So rubrics, we develop rubrics with the help of signs. Signs, I'm saying sign, chinna. The different kind of the signs are there. And in the social linguistic work, it explores social interaction and settings. But the important things if researchers is working with the social interaction or with the social settings, but the main focus of social linguistic is that the interest of the researcher should not be diverted from the communicative behavior. Social linguistic work, with the help of this communicative behavior, they can make the research in this new channel. Already I mentioned that in particular in this social linguistic tape and video recording and all the speech, and they can analyze all the signs and symbol systems. You cannot believe, if you collect the data, for example, you collect the data. Suppose I'm taking again same example, travel education. I collect the data in the form of the words. I recorded the entire interview. So I have all kind of the words. Now I have a data with the words, or we can say, sorry, I have a data with the speech. Okay. Then I transcript entire speech data into the word form. At the same time, maybe I click some pictures of particular events or particular settings. So I have a different kind of the pictures with me. Sometime I have a different kind of the symbols of the travel education system or travel people. So you can imagine that now I have a data in the form of the words. I have a data in the form of the some photos or pictures, or I have a data in the form of the some symbols or some kind of the instruments or some kind of the devices which I found it in a particular travel system. So once I have a three kind of data, so you can imagine that how we can analyze the data. How do you communicative system marginalize the group and maintain the power inequalities? When such questions arise in front of me and I have a data in the form of these three things, that time I am trying to communicate. I am trying to communicate with all the data and find out some kind of the concrete patterns, concrete uh, output or theory from particular data. And it is very familiar genre in the field of educational research as case study. Select one person to understand larger phenomena through the intensive study of one specific instance or case, or we can say person, group, and activity and process. But I could not, basically personally I am not conducting case study on particular single very specific activity or specific process or specific group, because it is very familiar in our educational research that identify the person and conducting the case study. So case study is not only conducting with the person. We can do, I think we have to move from the scope of persons or space of persons to group and activity and process. So definitely we will do it right now. And I request all my researchers, if there are the new learner, new researcher, they can also move to the new genre that identifies specific group of activity or process. Definitely it will helpful for us also. So it is also very already when we can think about the work plan of the study, it is a descriptive type of the research. We can collect the data with the help of different tools. Here descriptive means not only descriptive in the sense of quantitative, descriptive in the sense of the qualitative research also. Heuristic and inductive, you can use it method holistically. Multiple and flexible method, you can use it. Multiple data collection tool, you can use it. So again, I'm saying that when we are designing the such kind of research question in a group, case study of the groups and all these things, so you can analyze that do they produce existing inequalities, what kind of the different patterns in particular group, what are different thinking level in particular group, what is the place of woman and man in the society in particular group. Like this way you can identify different kind of the research questions with the help of your inquiry. There are again there is some what kind of some challenges. So the big challenge in the qualitative research is that defining the situation. When we are defining particular situation, generally we are very habitual to define our situation in the words of operational definition. But in the qualitative research, when you are selecting any kind of the situation, it is very difficult to define particular situation, particular component, because already I mentioned that this is the research which is continuously working in the field. So if you define particular thing at the initial level, maybe because of the entire process or the during the entire process, your definition will be changed. If anybody conducted, maybe he or she has experienced that when we define particular theme at the initial level, when we started collecting the data after finalizing particular tool in our mind, and we have some kind of definite theme or sub theme, you cannot believe when you collecting the data rigorously in the large level, that time maybe sometime your themes will become a change. So you have to change it. This is the flexibility in a qualitative research, but it is also challenge how you can maintain, maintain the continuous repo with the variables, with the particular things. Halo effect, halo effect is one of the things that suppose this is one tendency we can say. we have sometimes some assumptions in our mind, or basically we have very positive impression. What I'm trying to say that, again, I would like to give same example. Suppose I am conducting research in the tribal area regarding education. That time I have some impression in mind regarding their life, and I have some questions. For example, okay, they are facing a lot of problem in education. They are not able to getting the education. This is the one kind of the impression, and I have this impression. I strongly believe, or I would like to say, it is a very positive impression, and identifying the research question. But sometimes it is not like this. Sometimes when you enter in the field, maybe you can find very different situation. That's why it is, to manage such kind of effect, it is very difficult in a qualitative research. Again, and the second example is that, suppose I would like to give my one example. When I completed my postdoc in University of Massachusetts, then my supervisor told me, you have to, but my supervisor told me that you have to visit the school. So she suggested me two schools in New York setup. So I have some impression about the New York City, because we have a big impression about the America in our mind, in basically in some subcontinent country, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. We have very big attraction about the USA, and I have such impression about the New York, and my supervisor told me, you have to visit particular school. Here I'm not mentioning the name of the school. I went in particular area. You cannot believe that. I feel that I am in somewhere in Mumbai or somewhere in Pune, in particular setting. So the effect of I have some positive, I have some impression about particular school, but I found something different. So when you can imagine how I'm explaining. You can imagine you have a list of question in your mind. Suppose I have a 3-4 question I need to ask about principal of the school, and in the traveling I'm trying to revise all the question in my mind. Okay, I am asking this question, that question, so and so, because maybe the setup is like this way and blah blah blah. And when you enter in particular setup and you found it is something different, that time it is very difficult to manage all the question which you are constructed, which you are designing in your mind. So it is very big challenge, what I am trying to say. I hope you will understand this notion. So collecting the data, and suddenly you can modify your questions according to the particular setting. I setting the word setting, and what is another word is that people and setting. So suddenly it is a change, and when I saw the particular setting, so I need to modify my questions, my research questions, according to my all objective. That's why I'm saying, in a qualitative research, you should be always ready to be flexible regarding your questions, regarding your methodology. Same the example, and the same next day I found different school, specifically Chinese school. I went to the Chinese school, then I went to the Asian school, I went to the pure American school, I went to the one Mexican school. So suddenly I found different kind of the settings. This is the, so when in a qualitative research, definitely you have some impression with the help of, because of some reviews, you have some impression about your case, about your groups, about your people, and suddenly something is happening, and it is managing, it is very difficult to manage at the certain time. Another thing is that open-ended and diversity. This is also important, how we can balance it. because already I mentioned it is very difficult to balance it. You cannot believe if you have a structured structured question for the interview, and you are very confident about particular structure question, and you enter in a field, and suddenly you feel that, oh, there is the big diversity about my sample. It is very important how do you make a balance in your questions and collecting the data. I would like to share one example regarding my research, which is funded by the NIPA right now, National Institute of Planning and Administrative University. This is one university, and this NIPA in project, I went to collect the data regarding governance and management and higher education, and with the help of structured question, I took interview of 2-3 vice chancellor in Maharashtra. You cannot believe that. Suddenly the incidents or the, because see how the big person who is handling entire university, so you cannot predict that the particular person is giving all the answers of very sequentially of your questions. I have open-ended questions, and I started to interview with the help of my mobile device or particular recording devices. And I asked one question, and the person, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of particular university, he reflected in a very different way, very diversely. He adding a lot of things in my question. So it is very difficult to manage the entire reflection of the respondent in my interview setup. This is one challenge. Sometime identifying very specific group, very specific cultural setup, very specific classroom setup, sometime I will lose my focus of the social aspect. So how we can manage the social aspect? So it is very easy nowadays that we can put it in the delimitation. But it is my request to all the researcher, when they are doing the qualitative research, it is not delimiting every time that if I am not came to across a particular incident, so I can put it in a delimitation. No. So if it is very important, we can touch it, we can identify, we can collect the data, we can focus on particular aspect. So sometimes we can neglect. So it is my request to researchers that they should be very clear about writing of multiple realities. It is very also big challenge, because in a qualitative research, fourth and fifth chapter, the conclusion and discussion, it is very important, because the entire discussion is because the researcher are spend his 4, 3, 5 years in particular settings, people's groups, and when he is writing or she is writing the entire discussion, that time he or she is trying to find out different kind of realities. So identifying the proper realities according to your theme and not objective, but according to your research questions. If you found something different, which is not designed as a research question, then at that time you can design the particular question, you can write. So writing up, or basically last chapter discussion part, it is very important, and how you can make in one way, it is very big challenge to all of us. The last challenge is that emotions, in a qualitative research, suppose a person who spent 3-4 years on the various books of Nelson Mandela or various books of APJ Abdul Kalam, you can find the researcher has very emotionally very touch with the particular character. What I'm trying to say that, for example, my one of students is very connected with the Nelson Mandela. So it is, emotions are very overflow, that he's very connected with the particular character, particular case, particular groups, and to maintaining such kind of ownership, it is very difficult in a qualitative research. But with the help of good books and with the help of your guide, you can overcome all such challenges, and you can do it pure qualitative research in the educational research area. I hope you will enjoy. I use these three books. An Introduction of Qualitative Research Learning. It is one of the very recently published one book. This is second book is that Cresswell books, and the third one is that it is Marathi book. Deliberately, I am added these books written by the Sanjeevani Mahale. So all three books are very. So enter my discussion. I am really thankful of this literature. These three books are helpful for me, and this is my contacts. If you have any question, you can ask me anytime. Kaikwad madam, from my side. Yes.
Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It is very difficult to speak. I saw a number of people, but I cannot speak with anybody else. I want to see in front of my, there is one wall. So, you know, you can imagine how it is very difficult.
Yeah. It is a little bit difficult. Thank you very much, Vaibhav Jadhav. It was very, very informative information given by you along with all your experiences. And I think do participants have questions, so they can post or they can ask? Parag, can we give them time for questions, or the time is over?
Well, it's 4:31. If participants have questions, they can ask in the chat box.
In the chat, okay. And then we can have the answer those questions in the question answer session in the evening.
Yes, that can be done. And if the resource persons are here, they can also.
Okay, yeah, they are here, very much here, I feel. Can you see any questions?
No, ma'am. So far, no question. No? One question is there, ma'am. From they have not mentioned the name, but the question, if you like, I can read. It's the preconceived perception versus test of civic mindset varies in each and every conceived moments after touches of it. Why?
I could not understand the question.
Preconceived perception versus test of civic mindset. Yeah, Vaibhav Jadhav.
There is one question: can some case study can be termed as the experimental research? It depends on the nature of your question, research question, how you can, but it is experimental research. You cannot say that it is as a experimental research, but in a case study, you can coin as your research questions and finding the particular answer of your research question with the discussion. But it is very difficult to make it as a experimental design. Nowadays, you know, there are number of designs also available in a qualitative research. Maybe you can watch the video of Shefali Pandey madam. She already mentioned all the designs.
Yeah. There is one question, Jadhav sir. Thank you. Is there a compendium in India wherein we have
longitudinal data for all the
dialects and ethnic groups, tribes in India? What their cultural musings are documented with some standardized interpretation of lexicons.
See, in the diversity, when we are conducting the research in the diversity area, that time to define the themes and sub-themes are very important. And when we are doing the research in such, already I mentioned that the culture of US and the culture of the India, it is very different. So, for example, we can make a study education system in a different culture of India, Maharashtra, South India, North India. So it is very comprehensive work with the particular phenomenon.
Dr. Padmini has replied, I think, to some question
cannot be,
about case study. She says no, case studies are not controlled and is solely on exceptional cases. Okay. But Uplane, madam, Dr. Uplane, can you just satisfy Mr. CHK Sharma? He says preconceived perception versus taste of civic mindset varies in each and every conceived moments after touches of it. What I perceive, he wants to say ki you have some perception in your mind, but in actual situation, the mindset of those people is different. And when you go there and you get the feel, then it changes. I don't know, Mr. Sharma, if you can clarify your question, think over it, and then we can have some other questions by that time. I feel
He must have come across such kind of situation, I think, during
it must be
research. If
his
he
experience.
explains, we can speak something at least.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, any other question, Parag? I think it's time for attendance now. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Anyway, I thank again both the experts today and hope our participants must have understood how qualitative and quantitative analysis is done. Thank you very much once again, ma'am, and all the participants. Best of luck
Thank you, madam.
for your further activities. Thank you.